Things you're going to see as a proposal is that the state gets a little stake in the team. Because I believe it was Phil, forgive me if it was someone else, that mentioned the value of the teams going up. So now I want you to contemplate waking up as governor. And the headline of the Star Tribune is, Ziggy Wilf agrees to allow state to take part in the profits if they'll put some money into the stadium. How do you argue against that, or do you?
The same way you argue against getting involved in any private business. Again, the state is not, somebody brought up the State Board of Investment, which I've sat on that board when I was state auditor, and there were people that were arguing that we should invest money in Minnesota and this sort of thing, which essentially puts politicians in charge of picking and choosing, again, where to invest money, and I think that is a very poor thing, and it's gotten us into a lot of trouble. The state is not a business, and the state is not an investment vehicle, and we shouldn't be doing that. The problem with government is that government has gotten too big. It's gotten way beyond its constitutional responsibilities, so it now thinks that it can get involved in every little issue out there. You've got the federal government trying to get involved in school issues. You have cities talk about school issues and so on. So every level of government is going way beyond what they were supposed to be doing, because they feel like, people that get elected will feel like, hey, I have to solve this problem, or this is the issue du jour. It goes back to what the federal government's doing right now with health care. There is nowhere in the Constitution that health care can be done by the federal government. And it is not a federal issue, so why are we allowing that? So it's the same philosophy, and I will have that as governor.
Thank you. Paul, in or out on any kind of subsidy for Viking Stadium?
I am out on any kind of subsidy for a Viking Stadium, Dave. I opposed the Twin Stadium proposal in the first, I guess, 5 years I was in the legislature. I opposed it when it finally passed. I think I recall Mr. Davis testifying before the House Tax Committee with a ukulele, if I'm not mistaken. So I know where Mr. Davis is on public subsidies for stadiums as well. So it's a pretty simple answer. The answer is no. But I want to, since I still have a minute, I'm going to take a little bit of what Pat was just saying. And you know, the problem with the scenario you painted, Ziggy Wilf giving the deal, if you give us money, you can get some of the profits. We don't have the money. I have interest group after interest group after interest group coming into my office, and if you invest a little money, Representative Kohls, in my program, it's going to return tenfold to the state of Minnesota. We don't have the money. Government has gotten so huge in the state of Minnesota, and spending is simply unsustainable. And so whether it's public money for stadiums or public money for other new programs that somebody dreams up that they think is going to solve some real or perceived issue, the simple answer is we don't have the money.
Very good. Now see, the beauty of this, folks, is when 2.5 years from now, the proposal's up before the legislature, the governor takes a position, we've got commitments here, don't we? We know where they stand. And we appreciate that. We appreciate that stand. I think we do, don't we? Yeah. All right, now I'd like to start a little bit of a family feud here. We'll start with Pat. There seems to have developed a couple of different groups within the Republican Party. And I know this up close and personal. And it's not an easy one. We have the group of people right now in the Republican Party that make fiscal responsibility, tax issues, money issues, if not the only issue of concern, certainly 90% of the effort should be put there. Then we have a lot of people, and based upon my experience, I think it's split pretty close on this. And I'm hoping to God you can all handle this better than I did. So we've got this other group that is kind of more the traditional, moral-based, in many instances Christian, but certainly Judeo-Christian in their outlook, that still believes social issues are really big. Now, I can tell you from having sat on the radio for a lot of years, before I got fired from that job too, well, that's a badge of honor in the media business. I sat and listened to a lot of people call my radio show and say, it's those blankety-blank social conservatives that run around thumping the Bible and naming God and making social issues that all the moderates think we're crazy. How do you balance those two groups? Because let's face it, we can talk about the moderates all we want. To win an election, you got to get your base. How do you bring the base together?
Well, you're asking lots of questions in your one question, and I could spend about half an hour talking about the party and what's going on. But
try me.
First of all, I would say that the group that you talk about, which generally the new people, or we call them liberty people, or however you want to name them, most of them are socially conservative too. Their main issues are fiscal, but I think that we agree, both factions, if you want to say, agree on almost all issues across the board. I think there certainly is differences in probably emphasis. What the party lost elections because it lost the fiscal conservatives, because the party was not acting like fiscal conservatives, especially at the federal level. And we lost credibility on that when we lost those folks. And I am happier than heck that they're back. They're back, and we need them to win elections. And we, as candidates, we have to, once we are elected, we have to also perform, because we cannot allow what happened in the past with Republicans happen again. There's no more rhinos up here. And I think you'll find, as you talk to all of us, we are all very similar on most issues, both the fiscal issues and the social issues. So how do I bring it? I believe that I'm the candidate that can bring, I'm going to run out of time, that I can bring the party together. I was on both national delegate slates last year at the state convention. I was on both the Liberty slate and I was on the traditional leadership slate. And I will do it when I have more time. So thanks, Dave, Mr. Thompson.
Tom, how do you bring these coalitions together to make sure that that base comes out in November a year from now?
Well, I'm a little troubled by the comment that there are two factions. I think there are many different points of view, and I think this party has been struggling over the past several years to acknowledge why it is that we've lost consistently over the last several election cycles. And the struggle has been, but not a willingness or an unwillingness to say, we didn't keep our promise. Our predecessors in the 90s that entered on a contract with America, they broke the contract. They didn't reduce the size of government. The other thing we did as a party, the moral issues are important, but what we did as a party is, if you look at the trunk, or if you look at the Republican Party as a big oak tree, with the trunk of that tree being our core principles of self-responsibility, self-determination, the right to achieve, the right to fail, if that's the core philosophy, individual rights and responsibilities, and the other issues, whether it be marriage or life, are branches off of that strong tree. What happened was we had our predecessors spending way too much time on the branches, and when the winds of change came blowing through, because we had not taken the time to pay attention to the trunk of the tree, our actual principles, rather than taking a couple of branches that broke the tree off at the base. I think Pat is right from the standpoint that for us to take back the mantle of authority and make the decisions in this state, we must return to the principles of our party, which are fiscal responsibility, self-responsibility, self-determination. I think that will bring everybody together.
Leslie, go ahead.
Well, I think the Republican Party has to establish three basic principles, and I think we could probably stick together on that, and that's fiscally being responsible and balancing the budget. I have plans and methods of how to do that with bringing debt-free money into circulation. You can't pay debt with debt and get out of debt. It just doesn't work. So being fiscally responsible and having freedom to move around as we choose. I don't like all these restrictions that are being put on us. So I agree with that part of it. And if a party and a group of people are not concerned about the protection of the unborn babies, then I'm not interested in working with them. So those are the three principles that I operate on as a Republican, back from the days when I supported Al Quie and Rudy Boschwitz with my hard-earned money in the 70s.